All right, so let's talk about what makes something high protein. I get that question all the time. And like most questions, my answer is it depends. So, see, what's interesting is when you talk about high protein foods, it's like I know it when I see it, but a while back I was thinking, I'm like, man, that's really interesting question. Like, what does make something a high protein food? So I got on the old Googs, Googling around and was looking, and there isn't really a standard definition of what makes something high protein. So unfortunately, because it's good for marketing, food companies will slap it on pretty much any label, regardless of the accuracy or whether or not it's true. So let's start by how I define high protein. And this is by no means a perfect answer, but it will at least get you in the ballpark. And so how I define protein, or how I define high protein, is any food where more calories come from protein than from carbs or fat. So unfortunately, this means there's going to be some math involved. So let's think about this. All right, 1 gram of protein has 4 calories in it. 1 gram of carbs has 4 calories. 1 gram of fat has 9 calories. In other words, as far as my definition goes, for a food to be high protein, it needs to have more grams of protein than grams of carbs, and ballpark here, at least twice as many grams of protein than grams of fat. So when you start to look at food labels, what you'll find is a lot of the foods that are advertised as high protein, which we're going to get into some of those in just a second, may not be quite as high protein as what you're thinking. So when someone would say, well, how much protein should I aim for? My answer to that would once again be, it depends. So how you would want to determine this number would be to look on your in-body assessment, my imaginary in-body assessment right here, right up on the top, about right smack dab in the middle, you'll see something that will say lean body mass. We recommend roughly 1 gram per pound of lean body mass. So if your lean body mass number is 150, then say, okay, take 150, divide it by however many times a day you eat. If you're like, well, I eat 5 meals a day, with whatever. There's no right or wrong answer with how many meals you should eat in a day. You gotta do what works for you. But if you're gonna say, well, I eat 5 times a day and my goal, the lean body mass, is 150, then we would say 150 divided by 5, and I believe you're gonna get 30 grams. So that would be, your target should be 30 grams per meal. Again, this is not an exact number. I'm just trying to put you in the ballpark here. There's a lot of other variables that come into play. So again, look at it as that lean body mass number. Now keep in mind, there's a lot of misinformation out there and a lot of conflicting information that would say, wow, that's too much, that's too low, you don't need to have that much. And again, the thing I would say is, we're not aiming for bare minimum, all right? We live in a very unhealthy society. We don't want to be normal. We don't want to be bare minimum, because normal is very unhealthy in here in the U.S. So we don't want normal. We don't want bare minimum. We want to think about optimal so that we can live long, healthy, strong life. So now that we have that out of the way, let's talk about some specific foods. What do you say? So first and foremost, we got some peanut butter right here. Thankfully, Alicia just bought this, and it even says on the label here, 7 grams of protein per serving. Very exciting. A lot of people think peanut butter is a high protein food, but if you really break it down, there's 190 calories and 2 tablespoons of protein. Of that, 7 grams of protein. So 7 times 4, because there's 4 calories per gram of protein, we get 28 calories from protein. Now, there's 8 grams of carbs, which means we have 32 calories from carbs, and then 16 grams of fat, which would be 144 calories of fat. So when we look at peanut butter specifically, I would look at it and say, no, peanut butter is not high protein, simply because that it actually has fewer calories from protein than from fat or carbs. Moving right along, number 2, Quest chips. We love snacking on these here at the house. 150 calories is probably backwards. You can't read it. That's okay. I'll read it to you. 150 calories, 18 grams of protein, 5 grams of carbs, and 6 grams of fat. What this means is 18 grams of protein would be times 4, 72 calories, 5 grams of carbs would be 20 calories, and 6 grams of fat, 6 times 9 would be 54. So we have 72 calories coming from protein. So I would consider this to be a high protein food because relative to fat and carbs, there is more protein in here. Moving right along, I got 2 down, 2 to go here. We got RX bars. RX bars, the protein bars, right? Pump the brakes, wait just a minute. RX bars, 210 calories per bar right here. 210 calories, 12 grams of protein. 12 grams of protein times 4 calories. So we have 48 calories from protein. Now these have 23 grams of carbs, which is 92 calories, and 9 grams of fat, which is 81 calories. So although the RX bars have done a wonderful job in the world of marketing as far as catering to as coming across as a high protein snack, I would argue that may not be the case. And then last but not least, we have, this is an old jar that we've since upgraded, but the whey protein that we carry at the gym, and something like this, 120 calories, 20 grams of protein. So 80 calories, 20 grams of protein, 80 calories comes from protein. That's compared to 8 grams of carbs, which is 32 calories, and 1.5 grams of fat, which is about 13 calories. So 80 calories out of the 120 calories in one serving here, which would be like 75% of the calories, come from protein. So that is definitely a high protein snack. Other good sources of high protein, we're talking like eggs, chicken, fish, lean cuts of beef, lean like pork loin, low-fat cottage cheese, plain Greek yogurt, edamame, tofu. Those are some of the things that I recommend. Now, a lot of people would say like, oh, but what about this and this and this, and aren't these foods high in protein? Again, do they have protein? Yes. However, most of the foods, or a lot of the common foods that we think of as having high protein, I would actually argue aren't as great as what we think, simply because more of those calories are coming from carbs and fat. Doesn't mean they're bad foods. Just means when we're talking specific to protein, again, you can't put everything in a bucket and be like, well, it's either this or that. It's not a white and black thing here. So there's a lot of gray areas and there's a lot of other variables that come into play. But again, if we're talking strictly protein, and the reason I say protein so much is because protein is so important. It's the building blocks of muscle. So if you want to get stronger, protein's your golden ticket. If you want to lose fat, protein is also the golden ticket because there's the protein takes the body, requires more work of the body to digest protein versus carbs and fat. So that's also important. Also, because of the increases in lean muscle tissue that we can get from protein, along with obviously strength training, that will help to elevate the metabolism. And then last thing, from specific to fat loss, is protein also helps to keep you feel fuller for a longer period of time. So whether your goal is to build muscle, lose fat, just look and feel great, improve your attitude, I don't know, okay, maybe not that, but again, protein is super important. That's a lot to cover. I typed a lot of this up, so hopefully this helps, and now you know.